Hey, so welcome to Sanity's Cove video. Today we got Nick Franks talking with us about a really important issue. We're talking about mental health, particularly for the Christian. You may have seen the news this morning, a kind of well-known pastor of a large church out in California committed suicide. Died from suicide yesterday. Once again, pastor of a large church had, I wasn't particularly familiar with him, but his name was Andrew Stoecklein. And he had been battling mental health issues, depression, anxiety, looked up to by thousands, respected. But he had for a long time been battling what we call mental health issues. And we have Nick here with us today. He is about to be release something called the Bothy Sessions, which are 4 different sessions looking at mental health in general and specifically how that relates to Christians. So, Nick, what are we going to make of this? What should we make of this? A pastor who commits suicide. Should pastors be struggling with things like depression and anxiety? Is this an issue for Christians? What do you have to share with us? What's your take on all this?
Yeah, well, hi everyone. Firstly, greetings from Edinburgh. I didn't know that about the pastor, so that's really horrible to hear that. Before we come back to that, maybe I'll just quickly summarise in 30 seconds what this project we're doing is. Would that work?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so the Bothy Sessions are made up of 4 parts. Really, after kind of stumbling across Johann Hari's book called Lost Connections, the chap that hangs out with Russell Brand quite a lot. He's not a Christian, and his book deals with the shocking expose on antidepressants and the kind of spurious research base behind them, and just kind of trying to kind of blow that out of the water to have a fresh conversation about what's going on at a deeper level within humanity, within culture and society that's creating this pandemic of mental health problems. So it's increasingly more, people are increasingly comfortable to talk about mental health issues. And it was a glaring, obvious need for me to take this conversation to the church and have it specifically for the Christian. So just the 4 parts. So the first part, we prelude, a little bit of testimony about mental health from my life. Second will be an introduction about brain chemicals, antidepressants, and why the conversation can't stop there. Thirdly, the unique, and this is the bit answering your question about this chap in America, the unique mental health strains of the Christian sojourner and pilgrim. We talk a lot about the unique gospel joys, rightly so, there are. Joy of the Lord is our strength, etc. But there are also unique mental health strains that in 38 years of being in church, I have never heard teaching on or sermons on. People don't want to talk about it, whatever. So, and then finally, there's a wilderness word that comes from all of that called the dissolution of denomination. It's a huge message and call to repentance for the church. So that's the Bothy Sessions. Check it out on firebrandnotes.com. But to answer your question very quickly, should pastors be, pastors should have mental health strain like that. Simple reason being, and this is one of the things we go into in the actual project, is we become very familiar with language like, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain.
Yeah.
Die is gain, really. Or being in the world but not of the world. Mm-hmm. We're not of the world, really. So all of this language that we're raised in, and it's our kind of default go-to, and yet it has a profound impact on our mental health. Put in a positive way, we should miss Jesus, right? We should long for Jesus like a bride longs for her bridegroom. And C.S. Lewis gets this so right when he created his character Lucy in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe that most of you will have watched or read. Lucy had a special relationship with Aslan, and different from the other 3 children. And she understood that mental health strain of missing Aslan when he left, when he wasn't there. And so, that's just a little insight into what it should be like for all of us.
So you're saying that becoming a Christian can actually make a person more psychotic than they were before. Is that it? Come to Jesus, lose your marbles.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it like that, but I would say that you can take it in 2 ways. The 2 main ways would be when you become a Christian, you're exposed to a spiritual war that you weren't previously involved in the same way.
Yeah.
You know, the spiritual world means us to not enter into that warfare, because we wouldn't be saved.
Yeah.
But I think once we're saved, once somebody becomes a Christian, there are then unique health challenges to our mental health that otherwise. So, in other words, does the average Joe next door who doesn't know Jesus, do they have the same mental health strain as the Christian?
Yeah. Well, so, you know, are you saying that if a Christian is feeling depression or anxiety, it's just a spiritual cause, that we need to cast out the right demon, that there's never any hormonal or chemical issues or anything in the natural affecting it? Is that sort of how you're coming at it?
No, not at all. Well, we're not. The caveat, of course, is that in some cases, people's mental health problems are related to chemicals, hormonal issues. I'm not even going to for a second claim to have done the same amount of research that Johann Hari has done, but I would commend his book to everybody watching this vlog to go away and read, because he's done extensive research over a number of years into these narratives to do with antidepressants that just are spurious at best. You know, I don't know what it's like in the US or in other parts of Europe or whatever, but in the UK, GPs, doctors, they just kind of like reflex reach for antidepressant tablets to give people who struggle with depression, anxiety, or other mental problems, as though it's kind of like, as that's the answer, and they don't stop to think, oh, hold on a minute,
like some doctors used to do with antibiotics. You know, something could be wrong, just take these antibiotics.
Yeah.
So what does he and what do you kind of recommend? So if someone's saying, hey, I'm feeling depressed, should I just go take some meds to make me feel better? What are some other things that would be addressed in the natural that maybe this book would recommend? And maybe even beyond that, is there anything you would add as a Christian? What in addition could we be looking at if we're going through anxiety or depression?
Yeah. So if you, again, read the book, Lost Connections, get a copy and read it. But and it examines the lost connections from society and culture. So, excuse me.
Social connections?
Yeah.
Loneliness, this sort of thing? Yeah.
So things like the lost connection from meaningful work, or the lost connection from meaningful values, or the lost connection from meaningful relationships. And that's where the ultimate answer comes in that the Church of Jesus Christ should be the number one antidepressant on the face of the planet. It should be.
That's good.
The family of God, what it means to belong to the brotherhood of believers. When it's legit, when it's authentic in the way that God means it to be, it has a profound antidepressant effect.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the church is so often not the way that God means it to be, i.e. moving beyond Sunday syndrome and what I would call faux family, so fake family. Let's get a coffee sometime, guys. It would be great to meet up. We have to get you over at some point. It never happens. That's fake family. That's not the way church is supposed to be. And so guess what happens? The church then stops becoming this God-ordained antidepressant and actually becomes a devil-inspired depressant. That's what's going on. So Johann Hari isn't a Christian or a godly man, so he hasn't got that in his toolkit to talk about. So that's really what we're doing with this project with the Bothy sessions.
All right, fantastic. I just want to leave perhaps just one last question. So I have a few things that in my pastoral experience that I talk to when people have anxiety or depression. You know, some of these things are things like diet. I mean, you wake up and you eat a ton of sugar for breakfast.
Yeah.
You know, you eat Asda white bread that you smear Nutella on, or a bowl of chocolate Rice Krispies or some crap like that. And you're wondering why you're depressed by 10 a.m. It's like, well, go figure. You're eating crap. You're going to feel like crap, you know. There, and you go to the doctor, and he's not gonna say much about how you're eating. He's just gonna give you more chemicals.
Yeah.
Of course, there's other things. It's like porn. If you're digesting porn every day and getting lost in that sort of inward funk that porn creates in your mental health, that's going to tear at you.
Yeah, huge.
You're talking about connections. There's loneliness. I think the root of a lot of addictions, be it addictions to food or pornography, is loneliness. We have these lack of sacred connections and meaning. Funny enough, we just talked about meaning this Sunday, having meaning in life. If you don't feel your life has meaning and purpose, well then, inevitably you're going to lead to anxiety or depression. This is kind of what I come across as a pastor. Is this some of the things you're going to be touching on in your sessions?
No, but there's going to be yes, generally, but there isn't enough time to go into all of that. But we will be doing that, hopefully, just see where it's going to go. But of course, I remember just one guy that I was mentoring years and years and years ago. He struggled profoundly with mental health before it was really kind of commonly talked about in the media or whatever. And I just remember, he didn't ever eat fruit or vegetables because he didn't like them. Now, that's not to say that was the direct number one cause of his mental health problems, but it obviously didn't help to have a diet that was absent, that was missing fruit and vegetables. Yeah. So, it's just asking people to accept the fact, and I would say this to Johann Hari and Russell Brand, to believe that this is primarily an issue of brain chemicals, is denying the spiritual reality of life. And even as a human being, to deny that we're spiritual is frankly mad. So, and the other thing I want to just quickly say before I finish this is to come back to the thing about, casting demons out and everything. That's one of the areas that the church have failed in epically, historically, is to not give enough credence to other areas that might not be necessarily demonic. I wrote a blog article not that long ago, and the title of it was something like, not every mental health problem is not demonic. Not every mental health problem is not demonic. And so what's happened, I would say, in the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, maybe a bit more, is that we've gone so far away from the notion of mental health problems being primarily rooted in demonic activity, that it's almost like we just deny the spiritual realm entirely. And if you read, say, C.S. Lewis's Screwtape letters, Screwtape will say to Wormwood that their primary goal is to get humans to believe they don't exist. And I think we've come so far away from. So it's both and, but the project is really kind of limited in that we've only got 4 vlogs to work with.
Yeah, and I'd say that many of these things are interrelated. Like I think our current big food corporations, that there is a lot of demonic activity in that. I think what drives the online porn industry is demonic. Yeah. And so, we wouldn't separate necessarily. It's not, well, is it a demon, or because he spent 3 hours looking at porn last night, or because his diet's 80% sugar? Like, these things are interconnected.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And I think that another thing that's really worth saying is that in the same way that the church generally failed to deal with the issue of mental health, the church also struggled to deal with the issue of pornography. Pornography is arguably the number one scourge on the church, on society. And yet, how many churches do you know, how many leaders do you know who created a culture where that is addressed, talked about properly? We've talked about this before on this blog. Yeah. It's like a Victorian prudishness. We can't talk about mental health because it's a bit depressing. We can't really talk about pornography because the kids and the mothers might hear. And so all the while the devil laughs because we're not addressing the number one things that affect our lives.
Yeah. All right. Once again, we could probably continue this session for a long time. Thank you, Nick, for coming on to Sanity's Cove. Always appreciate your input. And we look forward to these Bothy sessions coming out in the coming weeks.
Yeah, mate. Check it out. So it's on
later. Bye-bye. Gandalf says bye.
Yeah, Gandalf. Thanks, mate. Just tell Gandalf to go to firebrandnotes.com.
All right.
Look for the Bothy sessions.
Good. He's making a note of it.
Yeah, with his staff. Thanks, mate. Good to see you.
Bye-bye.